Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. 14 years is enough time to build a life. Enough time to collect 1,000 ordinary moments that feel unbreakable. I held on to those moments like a superstition. Coffee at dawn before work, her head on my shoulder during late movies, our daughter's homework spread across the kitchen table while dinner simmered. Real love is built in those quiet seconds. At least, that's what I believed. Somewhere during year 13, the air in our home changed. It wasn't a thunderclap. It was a draft creeping under a door. First came the new passwords, then the phone turned face down. Then, team drinks blurred into midnight returns and perfumed apologies that didn't need to smell that good. I told myself stress can twist anyone out of shape. I told myself a career climb needs oxygen. I told myself we would catch our breath together soon. Her company won a big account. She became indispensable to a smiling executive named Damon, a man with the glossy confidence of someone who never hears no. She talked about him the way you talk about an app you've just discovered, some mix of admiration and novelty. Damon thinks 3 steps ahead. Damon can read a room in seconds. Damon says my decks are cleaner than the agency's. I listened, nodded, and stored the name somewhere I didn't want it. The nights stretched, the makeup sharpened. The laughter on her lips changed shape, lighter, like it had taken off its shoes and sprinted ahead without me. I'm not the jealous type. I repair things for a living and prefer bolts to rumors. But I have a good ear for strain. Every time she cut a shower short because a message pinged, something inside me tightened a fraction turn. One Saturday I found a receipt tucked under the car visor. 2 cocktails, hotel lounge, a date that didn't match any client dinner. I stared at the thin paper and felt foolishly calm. It wasn't proof of anything except a growing gap between my patience and the truth. I folded it, slipped it in my wallet, and waited. Storms tell you they're coming if you listen. The announcement arrived on a Wednesday evening, the kind of midweek that should be boring and safe. I was making pasta while our daughter, Lila, practiced a science presentation in the living room, her voice swelling with the enthusiasm only a 4th grader can conjure for volcanoes. My wife floated in from the bedroom with 2 suitcases already zipped. I'm heading out for a few days, she said, breezy as a forecast. There's a strategy trip on the coast. I'll be with Damon and a couple of senior folks. It's important, and I don't care what you think. I need this. The pot boiled hard. Lila's cardboard volcano leaned against the couch, a crater lined with red tissue paper. I turned the burner down and met my wife's eyes. She held my gaze like a dare. Did you just tell me, I asked evenly, that you're going away with another man and you don't care what I think? Her chin lifted. Don't twist my words. It's work, and you're being controlling. Damon trusts me on a pitch the firm needs. You should be proud. Proud. Of a trip scheduled without a conversation. Of bags packed while I stirred dinner for a kid who could hear every syllable. Proud of a partner who had already decided my opinion belonged outside the room. I dried my hands on a dish towel, walked around the island, and lowered my voice so Lila wouldn't catch the edges. Perfect, I said, and I watched confusion flicker behind her mascara. Because tomorrow you'll be my ex-wife. She laughed once, too loud, too brittle. Don't be dramatic. Not dramatic, I answered, decided. For the first time in months, she blinked like someone had pulled the curtain and sunlight hit her eyes. You can't be serious. You made it easy. I glanced toward the living room. Our daughter is 10 feet away. Take a breath, lower your voice, and think about what you just said. A flush climbed her neck. You're manipulating this. No, I said, calmer than I felt. You tried to show me where I fit in your new schedule. I'm simply accepting the placement. She rolled the suitcases back toward the bedroom, pretending to tidy, pretending the words could be packed away with the dresses. When Lila finished her rehearsal, I cheered like nothing had shifted because her world didn't deserve to tilt. After bedtime stories and an extra blanket tucked around her shoulders, because good fathers overcompensate, it's in the manual, I returned to the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I wasn't angry. Anger blows out quick like a match. I was patient. Patience is a torch that never admits its fire. Emails first. I reached out to a lawyer recommended by a client who'd weathered a clean, quiet split. I didn't use the word affair. I used phrases like marital drift, custody stability, and asset clarity. I scheduled an early appointment and scanned bank accounts. I didn't drain anything. I protected what paid for Lila's piano lessons, her dental checkups, the roof that kept rain off her poster board volcano. I removed my wife from 2 credit cards I had opened in my name years ago when money was tight and trust was easy. I changed the password to the savings account I'd been feeding, one small automatic transfer at a time, for Lila's college fund. Then I backed up photographs, years of birthdays and vacations, muddy sneakers and gap-toothed smiles, onto an external drive that I labeled with a piece of masking tape. Everything that matters. I put it in the fire safe with passports and the deed copy. Practical love looks like that. When I finally closed the laptop, the house hummed with the sound refrigerators make when they believe nobody is listening. My wife stood by the hallway, arms folded around herself like a borrowed coat. She was waiting for me to explode, to beg, to fight, to do the choreography that would make me look unreasonable and her trip look necessary. I left the choreography to her. "Are you really doing this?" she asked. "You already did," I said. "I haven't even left yet." "You left the minute you told me you didn't care what I think." Her jaw tightened. She reached for fury and came up with dignity instead, which surprised me. "I gave 14 years to this house," she said quietly. "To you." "And I gave 14, I said, matching her softness. "That's why this conversation is soft. I won't throw plates. I'll sign papers." She retreated down the hallway, and I heard the zipper of a suitcase open, fabric rustling like small rain. I washed the pasta pot and stared at my reflection in the window. I looked older, but also steadier, like a beam that had found the right load to carry. I slept on the couch that night, not out of spite, but to draw a neat line through the floor plan. This side is mine, that side is yours, until lawyers turn lines into maps. Around 3 a.m., I woke to the glow of a phone illuminating the ceiling. She was in the kitchen, whispering. She said the word coast and the name Damon, and then, after a pause, something that sounded like relief. I closed my eyes again, not because I didn't care, but because I had finally located the dock where care could tie its rope, step off the boat, and walk away. Morning is honest. It fills every corner and refuses to listen to spin. Lila ate cereal at the counter while I braided her hair poorly, and we laughed at how crooked it was, and then she insisted we match, so I let her tuck the end of my tie into my shirt pocket like a secret. My wife stood by the door with sunglasses on, luggage upright, a face made of porcelain decisions. "Be good for your father," she said to our daughter. "I'm always good," Lila answered, showing the gap where her newest tooth had fallen out. My wife looked at me. "We can talk when I get back." "You can talk to my attorney this afternoon," I said. "You'll have an email by lunch." Something inside her cracked then, not loudly, not like a plate, more like the tiny sound a ring makes when you tap it on a table and realize it is hollow. She left. The door clicked the way doors do when they decide to be doors and not symbols. I tied Lila's shoes, grabbed my work bag, and drove her to school through a street lined with trees the city kept promising to trim. At the drop-off curb, she hugged me a second longer than usual. Kids know when air has changed, even if nobody explains the weather. The lawyer, Ms. Hart, had a corner office that smelled like lemon polish and high standards. I told her the headline, not the gossip. I told her I wanted peace for my kid and fairness for me. I told her I didn't intend to torch the city just to light a cigarette. She listened, then laid out a plan like a careful map across a table. Temporary custody arrangement, financial disclosures, a polite letter that said what needed saying and skipped the adjectives. "If there are messages that suggest a relationship with a colleague," she said, "save them. But our strategy isn't scandal, it's stability." I liked the word. I took it home like a souvenir. In the afternoon, I cleaned the garage, a task I had postponed for months. I threw away the half-broken things you keep out of guilt and sorted the useful into neat bins. Camping gear, sports equipment, paints that still had life left in them. I wiped dusty shelves and felt the small satisfaction that comes from creating order where clutter had been trying to win. It wasn't revenge, it was control over the square footage I could command without raising my voice. Around dusk, a message landed on my phone from an unknown number. "We're wheels up, strategy meetings all day tomorrow. She's safe with us. Damon says congrats on raising such a strong partner." I stared at the arrogance stamped into those sentences and saved the text carefully. Pride leaves fingerprints, and people like Damon never remember to wear gloves. I grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner because Lila declared them perfect food. And we ate on the back steps, watching the sky melt into oranges a painter would call unrealistic. She told me about a class pet that bit only the naughty fingers and asked if volcanoes feel proud when they erupt. I told her yes, but only if people clap, and she clapped at the air without asking why. After bedtime, I walked through the rooms and touched the thresholds like they were wards. I wrote a list labeled tomorrow, and the bullets were boring. Call the bank about the joint credit line. Schedule a meeting with the school counselor to prepare for changes. Move my tools to the storage unit. Email Miss Hart the photo of the receipt I'd kept. I am not a dramatic man. I like fixable problems and clear instructions. Falling out of love isn't fixable, but protecting a child is. Before I turned in, I opened the closet and took down the garment bag holding my wedding suit. I unzipped it and ran my thumb along the lapel. It still smelled faintly of dry cleaner and a year when hope outran doubt. I almost felt grief, but grief brings you close to the thing you've lost, and I needed distance more than tenderness. I hung the suit back up and closed the door with gentle hands. People will tell you anger is what ends marriages. I think certainty does. When you know, you know. And when someone announces they do not care what you think, they confirm where you stand, and the floor stops shifting. Before sleep found me, I drafted one final message, not to her, not to Damon, but to myself. I typed it in the Notes app and left it without punctuation so it wouldn't feel like a speech. You are not a man. She leaves you are a father she will not take you, are a home someone wants to come back to you, are allowed to demand respect. I closed my eyes. The house was quiet, but it didn't sound empty. It sounded ready. What happened next would leave her in tears, not because I planned a circus, but because truth has its own choreography. I had already chosen the music, paperwork, boundaries, and the sheerness of a silence that refuses to carry another person's lies. And tomorrow, as promised, she would wake up as my ex-wife. The morning after she rolled her suitcase out the door, I woke to a house that felt heavier than usual. 14 years of marriage had given every corner of the place a memory, and now those same corners whispered different truths. I made Lila breakfast, packed her lunch, and walked her to school. She asked when Mommy would be back, and I told her, "Soon enough, sweetheart, because children deserve gentleness even when the truth is sharp." When I came back home, the quiet gave me space to act. I opened my laptop and reread Miss Hart's email. She'd drafted everything overnight. Temporary custody arrangements, separation paperwork, even a financial disclosure list that reminded me of how much of our life I had been responsible for maintaining. She was clear. You don't need to explode to win. You just need to be steady. That advice settled into my chest like armor. I spent the morning closing loops. I transferred funds from our joint account into the trust I had built for Lila, ensuring my wife couldn't touch it. I called the bank and froze the line of credit she used most. I changed the locks with a locksmith who didn't ask questions, and then I walked through the rooms, boxing up things I knew she would try to claim but didn't earn. The photos of Lila, the heirlooms from my grandmother, the leather chair I bought with my first paycheck, all secured. By noon, the house looked different. Less like ours, more like mine and my daughter's. The phone buzzed constantly with her messages. I landed safely. "Don't wait up. Martin, don't be petty. This is work, not what you're making it. You're being dramatic. We'll talk when I get back." I didn't reply to any of them. Silence was a scalpel. That afternoon, I met Miss Hart in person. She slid the documents across her desk like a dealer at a poker table, but her expression was firm. "You've got leverage," she said. Her words, her actions, everything points to reckless abandonment. If she tries to fight custody, we use those messages. If she tries to smear you, we lean on your work record and parenting. Stay calm. Let her play herself into the corner. I signed where she told me. Each pen stroke steady, each initial a small promise to myself that this time I wouldn't be played for a fool. When I got home, I found another message waiting. "Don't touch my things. I'll deal with you when I'm back." I almost laughed. Deal with me? The arrogance in that sentence only made me double-check the fire safe where I had stored all the essentials. Nothing left for her to take but the clothes she packed. By evening, I settled into the couch with Lila. We watched cartoons and ate grilled cheese, her laughter bouncing off the walls while the rest of the world tried to tell me it was ending. But it wasn't ending. It was beginning again, cleaner. That night, after she was asleep, I poured myself a drink and sat at the kitchen table. My phone buzzed again, this time with a picture. My wife on a beach, sunglasses on, Damon's reflection visible in her lenses. The caption, "Living my best life." I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it straight to Miss Hart. Evidence. Proof. The next day, I met with a financial advisor. We laid out a plan to separate my income cleanly, to ensure support went directly toward Lila without filtering through her mother's hands. He raised an eyebrow when I explained the situation, but he didn't comment. Just drew neat diagrams that showed how I could protect myself and my daughter long-term. By mid-afternoon, word had spread. A friend of mine who also knew Damon texted me. "I saw her with him. Sorry, man. She isn't hiding it." I wasn't surprised. People who feel untouchable always overplay their hand. That evening, Lila and I ate takeout on the living room floor. She asked again when Mommy was coming home. I kissed the top of her head and said, "Things are changing, sweetheart, but I'm not going anywhere." She seemed to accept that, distracted by noodles and cartoons. Later that night, my phone rang. It wasn't a message. It was her, calling directly. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was sharp. "What did you do with the accounts? My card was declined at dinner. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was?" "Yes," I said calmly. "That was the point." She hissed into the line. "You're pathetic, Martin. Do you think this will scare me? Do you think you can control me?" "I'm not controlling anything," I replied. "I'm protecting what matters. You made your choice when you packed your bags. Now, I'm making mine." She fell silent for a moment. Then her tone shifted, softer, almost pleading. "We've been married for 14 years. You can't just throw that away." "You threw it away first," I said, and I hung up. The following day, Miss Hart filed the official petition. She sent me a copy, and I sat at the kitchen table reading every line. The legal language was cold, but inside it was a simple truth. My marriage was over. That weekend, Hannah returned, dragging her suitcases back into a house that didn't feel like hers anymore. She stopped dead in the living room, noticing the missing furniture, the locked drawers, the absence of her name on the accounts. "What did you do?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "What I said I would," I answered. "I stayed calm. I let you leave. And now you're my ex-wife." Tears streamed down her face, and for the first time, she realized I wasn't bluffing. But that was only the beginning of her karma. The night she walked back into the house and found it stripped of her control, I saw something in her face I hadn't seen in years. Fear. Not the kind that comes from danger, but the kind that comes from realizing the ground beneath your feet isn't yours anymore. She stood in the doorway, clutching her suitcase handles, her eyes darting around the room as if someone had robbed her. "What did you do, Martin?" she asked again, her voice cracking. I stayed calm, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Exactly what I said I'd do. I kept my word. You wanted your trip with him. You got it. Now you're my ex-wife." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't move to comfort her. She had Damon now, or at least she thought she did. Over the next week, the unraveling accelerated. She tried to use her cards again, but they were still frozen. She stormed into the kitchen one morning, waving her phone at me. "Do you know how humiliating it is to have your card declined in front of colleagues? Everyone looked at me like I was some broke housewife." I sipped my coffee. Everyone finally saw the truth. She flinched, her fury collapsing into desperation. "Martin, please. We've been married for 14 years. We've built a life. Don't just erase me." "You erased yourself the moment you said you didn't care what I think," I replied. She sobbed, but I didn't budge. Damon was supposed to be her safety net, but within days, she learned the truth. He stopped answering her calls. He blocked her on social media. The man she had risked her marriage for vanished as soon as things got complicated. She had been nothing but a fling to him, and now she was nothing at all. One night, she collapsed onto the couch, clutching a pillow, staring at me with hollow eyes. "He doesn't even want me. He hasn't replied to a single call. What have I done?" I didn't answer. She already knew. The papers moved quickly. Miss Hart was efficient, And the evidence I provided, the texts, the pictures, her own words, painted a picture the court couldn't ignore. When she tried to argue that it was just a trip, Miss Hart presented her message. I don't care what you think. Judges don't like abandonment, and they like arrogance even less. Temporary custody went to me. She had visitation, but only on set weekends, and even then she had to prove she could provide stability. For the first time, she saw that her actions didn't just hurt me. They carved distance between her and her daughter. When the order was read, her sobs echoed in the courtroom. She looked at me across the aisle, her eyes pleading. I stayed composed, my hands folded, my breathing steady. Afterward, she cornered me in the parking lot. Martin, please, don't take Lila from me. Don't make her hate me. I looked her straight in the eyes. I won't have to. She'll see the truth on her own. She broke down right there, sinking to the pavement, clutching at my arm. I gently pulled free and walked away. As weeks turned into months, the distance grew permanent. Damon never resurfaced. Word of her trip spread through her firm, and though she wasn't officially fired, her career stalled. She became a ghost at company events, whispers trailing her like smoke. Friends who once filled her weekends with dinners and drinks stopped answering. She went from admired to avoided. Meanwhile, I built a quieter, stronger life. Lila thrived in her routine, adjusting quicker than I expected. She asked about Mommy less and less, her world stabilizing around school, piano lessons, and nights spent cooking with me. Our bond grew deeper, forged in the furnace her mother had ignited. Occasionally, Hannah tried again. Emails filled with regret, messages that swung between fury and begging. You'll regret this when you're alone. I miss you. I miss us. Please, just one more chance. I ruined everything, I know that. Don't punish me forever. I never replied. One afternoon, months later, I ran into her outside the grocery store. She looked thinner, her makeup smudged, her hair unkempt. She held a small bag of cheap groceries, nothing like the brand-name shopping trips she once flaunted. When she saw me, her face lit up with desperate hope. Martin, she whispered, stepping closer. Please, can we just talk? Just 5 minutes? I looked at her, calm and steady. There's nothing left to say. Her lip quivered. I can't live like this. I've lost everything. You're the only one who ever cared for me. I tilted my head. You had me, and you threw me away. Now you're living with the consequences. Her eyes filled with tears. Please, I'm begging you. I shook my head. No. Begging won't change the past, and it won't rebuild what you destroyed. I turned and walked away, my grocery bag in hand, leaving her standing there in the parking lot, her world crumbling around her. That was the real revenge. Not in shouting, not in humiliating her publicly, but in walking away quietly, leaving her with nothing but the memory of what she had lost. She had said she didn't care what I thought. But in the end, it was my silence that defined her downfall. And every time she looks back on the moment she packed her bags and announced her trip, she'll remember the words that sealed her fate. That's perfect, because tomorrow you'll be my ex-wife.